Welcome to Node Mode. I am Depeche Node, and this is the NFT podcast on digital art. We talk with artists, OG collectors, and the smartest people in the space about all things NFTs. As usual, nothing in this video is financial advice. We are not financial advisors, and the NFT space is incredibly risky, so always do your own research. Don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. We love spreading the gospel of digital art and physical art as well. Today, we are joined by Todd Kramer, who oversees artist relations with the Goda Pass. Goda stands for the Gallery of Digital Assets, a curated source for leading contemporary artists looking to explore digital as a new medium. In other words, helping to bridge that gap between the physical and digital worlds of art. I absolutely love that. Todd, what is going on? How you doing, man?
Good. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's awesome. It's going pretty well. It's getting nice and below sub-freezing temps here in Salt Lake City, but other than that, I can't really complain.
It's starting to get. I'm here in New York City myself. It's starting to finally get cool. Like we had like a last glimpse of hope, staying warm, until like last week, and then it just started getting cold. Like now you need a jacket, hoodie, beanie kind of concept.
Yeah. So as I was learning more about you, the first thing I found super interesting is that you've got your own physical gallery, right? You've got the Ross and Kramer gallery. I want to hear more about that. Like, how did you get started with that?
Okay, so I'm a partner in Ross and Kramer Gallery. Ryan Ross is my partner. He's also a Goda founder. And I got interested in art, in like a former life. I was like a derivatives trader and a volatility trader, but really always had like that left side of the brain that worked more for me. Like I didn't really fit into like the Wall Street mode per se. Like I wear hoodies every day and I don't like wearing suits. And so I started as a collector, and it kind of like it involves. It's funny when you think about like NFTs. I talked like last night on a Spaces, and I was talking about how like once a collector, always a collector, and it applies for like from a kid to like now with people with NFTs. But yeah, I was a collector, and what happened was I started to see data started to become more readily available to people. What I mean by that is, like internet is taking off. There's web services now that are posting auction results and auction comps. So there was starting to be like data that was, once kind of guarded by the art world was now readily available. I started to use the data to kind of formulate opinions on value of other projects or, I mean, these are artists, but, I was looking at it kind of really at this point, I was looking at it, from just like an opportunistic standpoint, and really working with more like artists at this time, more like what would be considered like like blue chip, like deceased artists. So like Keith Haring was an artist I collected like in depth, and then it kind of slowly morphed into collecting artists of this time, who ultimately turned into becoming some of my best friends. So that would be like Cause and Nina Chanel Abney. And like as I started getting more interested in that and becoming closer with them, I started to kind of see how the gallery world and how the gallery system was playing out. And I didn't think it was like really like run so properly. Like I felt like artists were getting taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Like I never understood how like galleries would make artists feel like special for showing with them. Like you're lucky to be we're giving you a show, but like without the artist, like there's no gallery.
Right.
And so kind of just started to, figure out, the right way for me to get involved and open the gallery. And the gallery now represents a lot of, living artists of this time. We actually have an opening. I'll give a shameless plug right now. We have an opening tonight for anyone who's in New York City, 515 West 27th Street. The artist is Nicasio Fernandez. And it's cool because Nicasio is actually like, he's an undoxed degen. So he's a
really?
He's a degen.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. People know he's a degen, but people don't know who he is. Which one he is. But yeah, like totally involved in the space here. So those are the Nicasio paintings that you're looking at now.
So to clarify real quick, you mentioned an undoxed degen. So it's like this is somebody in the NFT space. You're saying
yes,
that is creating physical art as well. That's cool.
Yeah, so he's been a physical artist for quite some time, and he's also a collector. Back to that concept of collectors collect things. He was
Yeah.
he collected a lot of sneakers and Supreme and stuff like that. But I discovered like I didn't out him, but I figured it out. I was like, wait, is this you, man? And,
Nice.
and finally he like fessed up, and I thought that was really cool though that he was playing like that kind of role within Web3 where he could operate, move on his own without people knowing who he was, and like I respected that.
I love that. These are interesting, man. This is cool. That's awesome. Okay, so you've obviously got this going on. What's it like? As I've mentioned this on the show. Like I've always appreciated art, like anybody else. Art was one of the reasons why I kind of got into NFTs because I heard like my dad, for example. He's done well, but a lot of his investments haven't gone great. But the one thing that has always done well is his art. All of his art, he's always, every time he's moved or needed to sell it, it's always appreciated because he has good taste and he buys good art. And so that kind of got me excited. But I really like my entrance was through the digital world, which is unique, obviously, and can only be possible in the last couple of years. But I want to learn more about just the traditional world of art and like how this all works. Like I've been recommended the book, The $12 Million Stuffed Shark, which has been super interesting and eye opening. But like, what's it like operating as a gallery owner? Like, is there really like this crazy world of dealers that are anointing artists and turning them into something that wasn't there? Like, how does this all work?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an insider game, right? And like I kind of like have always played like the gallery's ethos, I guess. I like to like say it's like kind of like punk rock.
Right.
Like I've always like respected like the institution, and we are respected by like the inner elites. But at the same time, like, I always, I'm interested in showing things that they might not have anointed
I love that.
necessarily. And like, a perfect example is like, the traditional space, it's changing slowly, but like, I mean, dude, they are anti NFTs and like Web3, and and like we come from a place of like, I disagree. Like, I actually think that like a lot of these, generative art creatives, a lot of the art blocks creators, like we're looking at like a really special moment in art history potentially, with something new. And like the institution is always very slow to adapt. They're especially slow to adapt to things that they don't understand. And I think it's the easy thing to just say it's not good. I mean, you have to understand the traditional art world like doesn't necessarily consider Banksy like a real artist, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Really?
Uh,
I didn't even know. I thought that was like, yeah, he came in, made a splash, obviously, but I thought there would still be acceptance at this point. That
yeah,
is wild.
he gets auction house acceptance. Like that's the funny
Yeah.
thing to me is like, so if the people determine something, if it's not the price, then that is the acceptance, because we're talking mega multi-million dollar sales for Banksy. But I think it's more like the gatekeepers didn't choose him, nor does he want to cooperate with the gatekeepers. Therefore, he's not one of them. Like I'm interested, like I think that there would be a very interesting dialogue if you interviewed or spoke to a lot of art world people and talked about Beeple. Like,
Yeah.
I think that there'll be a good amount to be like, no, 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 dude, that guy's an incredible artist. Like, what so yeah, anyway, so to answer your question, like, yes, it is a very like inside game. Um, you know, there a lot of times like certain people get behind certain artists and you could just see, but in other cases, like, um, someone might deem a gallerist a tastemaker. And there are some gallerists that I watch that are like, some of my closest friends who I really think that they have a great eye. They'll give artists their first show, and I'm like, I want to buy one of everything that this person puts on, like, because his hit rate is really high. From now, let's talk from an opportunistic standpoint, from aesthetics, like I love everything.
Yeah. Dude, that's so cool. Is there like you talk about this inner circle, the elite, like do you feel like that is going to eventually change, or do you feel like they kind of have this stranglehold over that traditional art market forever? Or do you feel like, hey, there's an opportunity here to for some of these traditional institutions that have been gatekeeping things for ages to kind of be slowly kind of overrun in a way? Or is this like, yeah, it's like the US government, good luck?
I mean, dude, I thought it would be really cool, to create like a museum DAO where like the people form this museum and decide what the museum's acquiring and where they're exhibiting and like traveling exhibitions. Like, I thought that could be like, so like to answer your question, like I think that would be really incredible.
Yeah.
But even like at that level, the amount of corporate funding at like the top institutions, like there's a lot of moving parts. But I will say it's not necessarily like as like sketchy and dirty as like I think that sometimes the rhetoric comes across with the art world. It's a tricky place and there's a lot of sharks. But I mean, like, hey, we're in Web3 also. Like, there's definitely more. I think there's more sharks, there, and a lot of games are played there, and it's very similar actually in a lot of ways, minus the fact that Web3 is obviously more transparent, which is much nicer. And it's, for the most part, up until maybe, I don't know, 2 months ago, I thought that it was creator friendly and creator royalty friendly. And like, that is something that's like really important in keeping like this whole machine going. And that's what's different, about the traditional art world, because like, you have to understand a traditional artist makes an artwork, historically they're keeping about 50% of the sale of that painting. And when that painting sells, I'll just use, round numbers. Like, let's say an artist sells a painting and the painting is 25,000. They get 12,500. Those weren't really round numbers, but anyway. So, now let's say that painting sells a year from now for $100,000. That
Right.
artist only got $12,500, and the collector who purchased the painting made 75 grand. Like, that's not really cool. And in a lot of cases, the artwork already is priced higher on the secondary market than the primary market, like very similar to like watches or like high-end cars. Like a Patek Philippe that costs 80 grand is going 300 secondary, or not really, not right now, but they were. So in a lot of cases, artists' work could sell for double to triple primary on the secondary market. So like there needs to be, so by, Web3, like what interested Nina and I, like, not the sole point, but like, a key component was the ability for creators to maintain involved in the longevity of their creation. What I think is really cool about it, I'm sorry, I'm totally just bouncing all over. My ADD is just kicking in big
That's
time.
perfect. That's how we roll. We like it.
All right, cool. But like what I think is really cool about it too is like very similar to like what SoundCloud was able to do for like DJs and producers. Whether it was a kid making beats in his dorm room or a DJ, doing sets, it created a place of like discovery. And I think that, what Web3 has done that for so many creatives, like, and I think it's just the beginning of it all, obviously.
Yeah, it's easy to forget, like, we always talk about the royalty component of that on Web3. Like, that's what helps these artists. It's a huge big deal. And I think for the most part, people that are buying art from artists in Web3, like, we're totally cool with royalties, like happy to do it and want to continue to support the artists. When it comes to all these PFP projects and things like that, it's like, okay, yeah, you guys may want to figure out another revenue model if you've got a business going. But like for the artists themselves, I'm stoked to support them. But the one thing that I often forget is that, like, they also got to keep more of the primary sale in our world, right? Like, if you don't get
much
50%
more
taken off from the top, right?
Right, exactly, a huge chunk. And
Yeah, so
that's the thing. It's like really gives the creator this ability to be like to create their own self-sustaining business. Like, listen, there are positives. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, the gallery system and the galleries I'm a gallerist and I'm thrashing galleries, like, no, but the galleries do add value too, like some jobs that a gallery will do. And this is also a key difference between Web3 and we'll call it Web2 or trad or whatever we want to call it. Like, is placement of works. So, in Web3, it's very, I don't want to say it's very democratic, because a lot of times it's like who can get on the allow list or the white list, and who can get access. So it is kind of similar. But as a dealer working for an artist, who owns the artwork is a very important piece of the entire like pie. If top collectors in the world start supporting an artist, other top collectors want to support that artist. And then it kind of turns into like when you were saying earlier, like a bunch of people get behind something and it becomes a thing. A lot of time it's purely like, oh, so-and-so I was at their house and they just showed me this new artist they're collecting. I want to get one. And so like as a gallerist, like if I can place the artist's works, whether it's with institutions and museums or board members of museums or, top collectors, I know that I'm like kind of adding more wind to the sails of the artist's trajectory, by doing that. And, so like there is some value add that the galleries do obviously have. Yes, there's a physical space component, you have to pay for rent. Galleries also will handle like museum liaisons a lot of the time. But, it's weird because the galleries have always used that as kind of like their pitch for why the deal structure is kind of the way it is. And what I've seen happen is that a lot of artists I know are kind of, questioning the system a little bit when it comes to that. And I don't know if it's like, look at all the folk in Web3 and what they're doing, but I think that like this, I think that people are really starting to artists. I guess I say it like this, it used to be like if you were not a starving artist, like you weren't like a real artist, like if you're like almost like guilty by your own success. So like my line that I've been using recently is like the day of the starving artist is over. Like the well-fed artist is now like an acceptable person in society. And with that comes more responsibility. And, like I said, and I tell artists like they're CEOs, like they're really CEOs of their own company, their own brand. Every decision they make should be like viewed from a strategic standpoint. And that's also tricky to do with an artist because a lot of creatives are like, yo, I'm here to create. Like that is, why I'm on this planet. And I don't want to pay attention to that other stuff. So, it's interesting.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it is a fascinating concept. And I think like you see it with Damien Hirst, right? Who gets plenty of flack from plenty of people because the guy, part of his art is that he knows how to market himself. Like it's an art form. and getting that momentum, and I mean just the amount of money the guy makes based off of the splashes that he's able to achieve and the way he gets the media to talk about him, right? Like it's kind of wild. And I don't know that it has to be for everybody. I don't know that it has to be for every single artist that they've got to get out there and truly be like a straight up CEO. But like when it comes to trying to make your stuff really succeed and get your work out there, you definitely need to be more than just creating the art, right? Like you definitely need that. Grant Yun was just on a podcast yesterday on the Proof podcast, and he said that 75% of the work that he sold early on, I think in the last year or something, was from collectors that he reached out to. So he reached out to the collectors and first and offered and showed them his art, which I think is so cool, right? Like he was like, I want them to see it. And that's where most of his sales came from.
I mean, like, that there are times, and when I first started working with younger artists, I would, meet an artist getting their MFA at Yale or Columbia or Hunter College. And, and I'd kind of be like, this person has a chance. I think their work is great. Let me give them their first show. And, like that, when I was doing that in the beginning, I would like, be like basically like evangelical, like, of this artist, like calling everyone I know, you got to look at this work. They're great. They're at Yale. Like, like basically like praying that I could get it into one top collection. So then I could tell everyone else that this collector just acquired one, that's also kind of like Web3, right? People love knowing what's in other people's wallets. Like, so, oh, Pranksy just bought this, look, Jimmy
Yeah.
Eat did this, so it's this, it is kind of similar. And it's been really fun for me to watch like how like some of these artists now have turned into like, big names in the art in the traditional world. And now it's almost like the opposite. Like I don't have to like shake trees and scream at the top of my lungs to get someone to to pay attention. um you know and that's nice, to do that. But it's hard to be an artist, man. Like, can you imagine like making all this work, then everyone judges you basically, and then all this work that you put your heart and soul into gets taken from you, and like it's gone forever.
Yeah, I
yeah
mean, I think it's a brave. I mean, that's kind of what it is to be an artist, right? It's like you're putting yourself out there, and it's a very you got to like be brave to do it. Like we got Witters in the chat. She's an artist. She's fantastic. But it's like, yeah, you get that feel of like, this is it becomes personal because art comes from a personal place and an emotional place. And so I definitely feel for artists. Like when people trash their work, you're like, okay, it's definitely, I'm sure they've got to figure out like what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to kind of deal with all that kind of stuff. We got a question in the chat from Witter. She says, I'm curious, how do artists approach these galleries and more prominent marketplaces like Super Rare? Like, do they do they just come and just say, hey, like, what do I need to do? Or how's that kind of process work?
It's interesting. I mean, it comes in all shapes and forms. It comes from someone reaching out, walking into the gallery, being like, "Hey, I'm an artist. Do you want to look at my work?" There's a lot of that. I have to be honest. Like, I haven't had like any like success moments from that. But for me, it's generally like an artist needs to put themselves out there, and social media obviously has like helped that tremendously.
Yeah.
Like Web3 lives on Twitter, kind of trad space lives on Instagram. And so like I've discovered a lot of artists from Instagram, whether that's looking at MFA programs or stumbling across artists. Like one artist that we represent, who's a really big artist now from Japan. His name is N Iwamura. And like this was like a crazy moment. This thing came across my a feed came across my Instagram page, and I looked at it and I was like, this is really really crazy work. And it never happens that like someone comes up and there's no mutual following. Like it was just like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
And I blindly reached out to him, and he tells me he's in Montana doing a residency at this ceramic residency, which happens to be like one of the top ones in the world. And I'm like, dude, your work looks really great. Do you want to do a show? And like, we have a gallery in the Hamptons as well as New York City. And I was like, yeah, we'll do it in the Hamptons. So it was like a leap of faith for the two of us. Like, I just got this guy on a plane. It's Japanese dude flying
So
from
cool.
Montana. I'm like, yeah, someone will pick you up at the airport. And then the work just showed up. But like, it's the first time I never saw work physically in person and was like, let's do a show. And the work came and I was like, this is incredible work. And like, when I tell you, like, this guy's career has gone from like his ceramics used to be $400 to now they're like $45,000. And like a wait list in like an 8-year time period. And, he's done bronze projects and he's interested in Web3. So there, that's a little Goda alpha for any Goda people out there. He's definitely working on something behind the scenes. And yeah, so, to answer the question, it's like, if I was an art, my advice I would give to an artist would be to like put yourself out there, like be on social media, go to, attend art openings. If you live in one of the major cities, especially like New York, Chicago, LA, I mean, San Francisco has a great art vibe. Miami does now too, but like go to gallery openings. Like I've met so many artists and like, that's where maybe cold calling works. Like where an artist will be like, hey, here's my Instagram. And I'm like, oh, this shit's dope, like versus like, here's my portfolio. But when it comes to Super Rare, I don't, like, isn't that's curated, right?
Yeah, I think a lot there you gotta apply to get in. Like
Yeah,
a lot of kind of the Web3 stuff. Like I think that's the biggest service that these platforms offer, right? Is the curation, which I think is huge.
and
Um,
exposure. Yeah.
yeah, but I want to dive into Goda a little bit here. Like when I scroll down and look at the team, I'm like, this is absolutely stacked here. I mean, you got Pharrell, you have Nick Adler. I mean, these guys are like big in no matter what space you're in. It like doesn't matter, you know. And then Sean Neff, who I'm a huge fan of the Neffs. These guys are they're just like the coolest guys ever. And I'm a friend of his brother's Chip Neff, who's freaking just awesome dude. Uh, very involved in Web3. Like these guys know their stuff. They understand. I feel like they just understand like culture, you know what I mean? And where things are going from a brand perspective. But like, what was it like pulling, like, did you just happen to know all of these people and you pulled them all together? I mean, this is an all-star cast.
I mean, to be completely honest, yeah.
There you
Like,
go.
it's really, it's a crazy kind of thing. So the way this all came about, it was during, Clubhouse, COVID Clubhouse moment in time, like, which I still couldn't even tell you what year that was. Like, it's always like a fog, but
Yeah, was
like
it 2 or 4 years ago? I have no idea.
yeah, right. During that, like,
Was it
COVID,
last year? I have no idea.
yeah, it like last year, 2 years or 3 years ago, but 4 years ago. But during that like COVID Clubhouse moment, Nina and I had both been like pretty involved in Clubhouse. Nina's been involved in crypto since like 2016, I think.
Awesome.
And I was playing like with NBA Top Shot, and like we were both kind of like interested in what was going on, and like we're listening to it, and Nina approached me and she was like, I want to do something like this. She's like, I'm not sure what that means or what that looks like, but what's happening in the space, like I want to be part of this. Like I could see there's something special happening. Which makes sense because Nina is very much about like artist empowerment and independence, and like really the importance of like an artist not getting taken advantage of. So we really kind of toyed around for like I want to say for like a year actively, trying to figure out what we wanted to do. At one point, we even like had thought about like the concept of figuring out a way to work. Like I do a lot of like music and art, like album covers, traditional like artists who do covers. Cause has done a couple of them recently, and my one of my best friends who's next to me down there, Easy Otaber, he's done everything from Travis Scott to Kanye West to he was Virgil Abloh's first employee, like a real special guy. But we were talking about the possibility of even doing something like related to like music and art. And we were watching the whole thing. We watched like like the Nifty Gateway Open Edition craze, and then like the PFPs, and then we were really interested. I'm very interested. We were interested in like what Art Blocks is doing.
Yeah.
Nina and I. But like at the same time, like we wanted to figure out. Like Nina was like, I want to figure out how to use this as like a special medium, like as a way for me to do something I cannot do traditionally. And so she kind of like got interested in like the generative aspect, not necessarily like, PFPs, but just like, her art lends to this project that she did. And if you see her art, you'll recognize like why it works. And, Nina is just interested in the conceptual piece behind community as well. So she actually wanted to have a community and wanted to include this community in what she was doing traditionally, which I think is like a very we always thought that bridging the gap, it was going to be mostly Web 2 to Web 3. And what we've experienced, and I think it's so special, is it's been very much on both ways. Like Nina had an opening in New York City, and she had I don't want to say like 30 or 40 holders came. She had a POAP that she issued at the show, that if you own a Nina and you have the POAP, I don't even think she announced it yet, but she's going to be giving everyone who did that, who has their collection, a show poster. And so like to her, it was like, she had the ability to kind of have these activations, we'll call them, right? Like that's become like the buzzword in like a lot of these like Web3 projects.
Yeah.
And like what's interesting for her is it's not like let's throw an activation, it's let's build an activation around what I'm doing right now in real life. So like, she has a mural up right now on the side of Lincoln Center. Um, During Basel, Miami, she's going to have a solo exhibition at the ICA Miami. So I think that, she's incorporating a day events for her holders at the museum. Walk through, she just has, so much going on, and so much going on commercially as well. I mean, she just did a Jordan capsule. She's going to do that again. And like, now what I found really great about her is that whenever we have these meetings now, she's always like, well, I've got this community that I want to incorporate. So it's like, and then I'm like, the crazy thing is like a Nina Chanel painting, sells at an evening sale at Christie's and Sotheby's. Like, the two of them sold close to $1 million. The most recent, a smaller painting, I think like a month ago, just sold for 600,000. Her prints sell for, 50,000. This toy right here, this vinyl toy is on StockX. I think these things sell for like $700, or they used to. I don't know where they are right now.
That's crazy.
So like, so Nina's like, this is a piece of my art. This is artwork. If you look at her paintings, this is the way she creates. It's pretty complex if you actually dive through in the traits and everything she did. There's hidden traits. But what we've kind of decided to do, and we haven't made an official announcement, so I guess this is kind of some alpha, but it's in the works, is I'm interested still in kind of getting more Web 2 into Web 3, or creating like a little bit more of like a Web 2.5.
Yeah.
So we're going to be partnering up and with one of the top print shops out there, and we're going to, over a certain time or time period, allow holders of her NFTs to make a one-time one-of-one print of the NFT, which will have an RFID in it, connecting the print to the token, which then becomes the certificate of authenticity, which I think is really cool, because like in the history of traditional art, like prints are usually like an edition of 35 or 50. Or in some cases 250, like Warhol Maryland's, there were 250 of them. But like here, someone can go on and buy, an NFT. You should look at like some of the special traits and stuff that she's done, because this project's really complex.
Yeah.
But now, so what I think is going to happen is when this company sends a blast out, they usually sell 2,000 of an edition. What's going to end up happening is people are going to get this email and be like, oh, a Nina Chanel print for that much? That's cheap. I want one. Oh, but you don't have the NFT. So now it's like it's like go through OpenSea, but it's not like a gamification. Like I always hated projects that did like gamification to like get things off the floor or move. It's just like, it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
This is actually this is like someone going into like a warehouse, or like a showroom, like looking through a catalog and being like, I'll take that one, like on OpenSea, I'll buy that one and then make the print. And no one's done that. So, we're working on that with token gating and a registry, so people will see which ones, which ones have been, turned into a print. But, what my hope is, especially for an artist like Nina or Todd James, who we did a project with, who's an incredible artist as well. My hope is that people won't buy an NFT, make the print, and then sell the NFT, because the NFT is now the certificate of authenticity. So like they kind of do need to live hand in hand.
Dude, I absolutely love that idea. I literally wanted to just buy one on stream. So everyone's going to front run me to get one. I've been eyeing these, right? I've been eyeing Nina Chanel and Todd James. I mean, the thing is it's really cool that you're bringing these top tier. I mean, these are not second rate or B artists, you know what I mean? If there is such a thing. Like, I mean, these are top tier artists. And I love that concept of, the way that you just explained it is like, I've never thought of it that way, but that's exactly how people in the traditional art world are going to look at it. They're going to be like, oh, the gallery is on OpenSea if I want to get the print here. And they might be confused at the fact that everybody, each one is owned by somebody else, right? Like they may not get it, but who cares as long as they buy it, you know what I mean? Like, and they figure out how that process works. number one, we've onboarded them, and you guys have specifically, which is awesome. And then number two, like, yeah, we're the collection itself. You've added this interesting dynamic. I freaking love that. That is so awesome. Like this print dynamic. I
Yeah,
mean,
and then and I just believe that right now, like, listen, we were born as Web3, and like really, we are a Web3 company, and the
yeah,
team is focused around Web3. But I do feel like at time right now, there still is kind of, even from just like the I don't want to say like Web3 maxis, but like there is really like um there's still demand for something physical. Like
absolutely.
people, and so for me, it's like this is the best way to do it. Nina's prints sell for 50,000. Like,
Yeah.
but they're, larger prints, a print set edition of 25. And this might be a smaller print, in the shape in a square. She wants it to look there won't be the numbers in Nina's case for the prints, but I think that this is going to really encourage new people to come into the space. Oh yeah, and then we have live right now. This is the Hilma of Klint, auction, which is a Dutch auction, and it looks like it's running. Yeah, so I guess the current clearing price is 0.75, and there's 16 minutes left. There's
Crazy.
100 there. So the story here, real quick. Hilma was an artist who lived in the early 1900s. She would be considered like progressive by today's standards. She was parts of like these different secret societies, some of them, entrenched in like the occult and seances. Others were, it was called the Thealist Society, which was like all about everyone's equal, all religions are equal, sex is equal, gender, like in the 1900s,
That's
1906.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so Hilma was an accomplished painter, but what people didn't necessarily realize until later on was she had been making this entire body of work behind closed doors. And she said, the world isn't ready to see these paintings. These are paintings for the future. I want them exhibited 20 years after my death.
That
And
is
she
so
left them
cool.
in storage, and that was it. Now, she had also been, she left like 20,000 notebook pages of research. There's an incredible documentary on YouTube about her. Like, anyone who's just interested in like really cool artists or art stories and like, a little bit of mystery should definitely look into this Hilma of Klint documentary. But so she says that they're not ready to be viewed. She wanted them to be built into a temple that she had designed, and she had a specific location where she wanted it to go at one point, like on this island off of Sweden. And anyway, so Hilma dies. 20 years go by. She dies in the 40s. The 60s, people now look at these paintings, and all of a sudden, and this is what the documentary is really about, people had to question art history, because these paintings that she made from like 1905, 6, 7, 8, and then she took a break and did them like I think in 12 through 14. These paintings are the first abstract paintings like recorded, or modern abstract paintings. So, you have like Piet Mondrian and Kandinsky are kind of attributed as like the founders of modern, abstraction of today. Like I'm not talking like Aborigine abstraction and so, abstraction from, this art, this time. And they saw these and they're like, wait a second, Hilma was doing it first. And it's crazy because she was doing it. It's like she knew the world wasn't ready for and she said that she didn't make the painting. She said that she like in her notes that she said that she was channeling the paintings and it was just coming out of her. So like if you look at all of her imagery, like this is like a lot of the imagery like speaks of today. In fact, like looks like a lot of generative art of today, the forms, the spirals, the figures, the color palettes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but like when she was doing, like if you like dive deeper and the collection will reveal tomorrow what she did, like this was at a time where like people would have thought she was out of her mind. It's like, no, you paint boats and fruit and portraits and landscapes like, what is this pyramid with an eye on it with lasers coming out of it, and like, so like I do believe that there's a good chance that this might have come from like another dimension or something like that, and that she was channeling it. So there are 193. We're tokenizing one of each of these temple paintings that are being sold at this auction, um, and then we're making an additional set that's going to be donated to the foundation.
That is awesome. What a story, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, this is absolutely wild. That yeah, the idea of did they were she just channeled that. I mean, that people literally would have like. I mean, that feels like stuff that the Salem witch trial stuff where people would go after her because she said something like that, which makes sense as to why she just said, "Ah, let's just wait 20 years after I'm dead." I mean, what a crazy and almost like a pure way to really be an artist, be like, you
Oh,
get to see this
totally, dude.
after I'm gone. That's when you get to see my art.
Well, it's funny you say that because an art, a segment of art that I'm very interested in, which kind of back to that like punk rock reference, that the traditional space is just starting to come around to, is like these like late 1970s, early 1980s, like New York City graffiti writers, like the guys who wrote on the trains. And the reason why I'm so obsessed with them is, I'm like, these were like kids, 13, 14, 15, 8, like that were risking their lives at night with stolen paint to do these beautiful murals on these massive trains, which like an artist would look at the size of that canvas and be like, that's insane. They would do it in one night with risk of electrocution, other graffiti gangs, dogs, whatever it may be, only to have it drive around and for, I don't know, a couple of days before it gets removed. And like,
Yeah.
to me, like, I'm very interested in just like passion, like, someone who does something from a place of passion, and like that to me is such a strong example of like, they wanted to create for themselves, let it go hit the world, knowing it was going to disappear and they weren't getting paid. In fact, they can only get arrested or hurt. So yeah, to answer that question. So, we just showed the artist Lee Quiones, at who, he did like Wild Style. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie, like the cover. He was like one of the most famous train writers in history. And like, he shared a studio with Basquiat, and because Basquiat
Legit.
was very interested in graffiti, and this was the man. So like, it's really fun to like get some stories and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we always talk about like Basquiat being, probably the biggest influence on a lot of the digital art that you see out there now. There's just so many people like what he's, they take inspiration from his work. I mean, I can't imagine what things would be like if you're around, like what that would be. It would be absolutely wild.
Sometimes I like to think, it's always going to be different, but like, which one of my homies, like, which one of y'all, like, which one of you is the Basquiat of my generation, like, because like, I truly believe like Nina Chanel Abney, is in her own lane, in her own vein, a genius, very similar to Basquiat.
Yeah.
Like, who did it? He did things his way. He made his paintings his way, and he operated his way. Like Nina, you know, I'll just say one thing: like, of artists of this time, she's absolutely adored by the institutions. So like, she's in the permanent collection of the MoMA, the Whitney, the Met, like the LACMA, ICA. I mean, she's in every major museum. And when she wanted to do toys, I was like, Nina, I don't know. I'm thinking about like those gatekeepers, like we talked about. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they love you, like, I don't know. I don't know if you want to, I don't know if you want to open up that door because, like that could have like some negative impact. All of a sudden you're commercial. And Nina was like, I don't care. I want to create a project. I want to, when she made the toy, it was like, I want to create, my friends are priced out of my artwork now. And a lot of people are. I wanted to make something that people can afford. And if that's a problem for the institution, then like, so be it. And she's always been that way. Like, just, she does it her way and she always just crushes it. So like, I've been blessed to kind of work with her, you know, and work with like an artist like Cause, who I think is one of the geniuses of this time. You know, he truly kind of created a lane for so many people. He bridged the gap of streetwear and traditional art, or like the hype beast community became like big collectors of art, you know, kind of with him as being like the gateway drug originally. Um, yeah, but I mean, like, there's so many amazing creatives. I mean, who knows? You know, maybe Beeple is like, you know, like who knows who it really is, you know, but like there is like Basquiat's, you know, Warhols, Picasso's amongst us, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. I'm hoping it's X Copy. I just freaking love everything X
Gangster.
Copy. It's
Yeah, X Copy's the
so
G.
so good. Okay, well, dude, we're running out of time here, but I want you to give us a brief rundown of how does the Goda Pass actually work for those
Okay,
of the, because I've
so
been eyeing this thing for a while, and I've thrown in bids a bunch. One of these days I'm going to snag one, but tell us about how does the Goda Pass work? What do holders of the pass have to look forward to?
great. So, you know, when we created the pass, you know, the concept is and was, you know, giving access to certain drops, you know, giving access to things, allow lists, and so on. You know, so the first two drops, you know, the mid pass holders were, you know, they were granted, you know, access to Nina's project, to Todd's project. In this case here, you know, people were a little, I want to be honest, like a little upset or disappointed since there was only 193 of these. That, you know, like we were just offering like a 15% discount to like mint pass holders. But what
Oh
people
yeah.
don't realize, like just randomly, like, you know, I was thinking about this today, is like straight up, Goda is losing money on this drop. And we wanted to do it because we thought the drop was like important, like, you know, to be able to bring something like this. I mean, these paintings were in the Guggenheim Museum. It was the largest grossing show in Guggenheim history. They're going to be at the Tate London starting in April through September, a whole exhibition on Hilma. So to me, like just the economics of doing 193 of something, and, you know, like all the stuff that goes behind the scenes to make it happen, this is a loser. But what you can envision in the future is airdrops of art, you know. So like we actually have an airdrop coming, you know, pretty soon. I'm interested in working with some of like more the same way that I work with like the term like emerging artist, you know, in the traditional space. Sometimes I'm also interested in trying to find other, even if there might be Web3 native, you know, digital creators, but like working with some younger artists and helping promote them and building their brands. So we're going to start to see some airdrops in Miami during Basel. There, you know, there's going to be about 4 different holder events. You know, we have a VIP at one of the art fairs where we're going to have cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. There's going to be the Nina party. There's going to be another party. You know, so there'll be some like, you know, Goda activity. I envision when the print project comes to fruition, the mint pass holders will have a significant discount to other people, you know, to just the token holders. And it's just really, you know, to me, like the way I see this mint pass, you know, I view this as like the ultimate, like, how do I say this? This is what I like. To me, the mint pass and the value to mint pass holders is probably like, you know, as important. It's more important to me than anything else. You know, I was going to say as important as like making sure these artists are taken care of and in the space and, you know, in a safe place and doing everything right. But to me, like, I know people spent money on this mint pass and they're counting on things and they're expecting things, you know, and like, so like, it's something that like I'm thinking about constantly, you know. One of the artists who has a prolific toy and vinyl collectible business, who's a founder of us, you know, I just don't want to name drop him, but you could probably figure it out. It starts with a K and ends with an S. You know, like, you know, there's, you know, talk with him about, you know, accessing mint pass holders to physical drops, you know, things that are like super limited. So like we are really trying to find all types of ways. And, you know, like one thing I'll say that kind of sucks about this space is Web3 is a very impatient space. So it's like when, you know, and it's like you can't, and you can't tell everyone everything that you're doing behind the scenes, because like if you drop the ball once or you misstep, it's like well, you said on Node Space that you were doing prints, and like it's like it's like they hold you to it, and as they kind of should. You're really held accountable at a level because of Discord and because of the connection to community. I feel like there's no other industry, business, whatever you want to call it, where there's like as much pressure on like a founder. Like I don't have this kind of pressure in my gallery. I've got an opening tonight. We've got catering. We've got all this, and like that, like that is a cakewalk. But here it's like, you really are damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And so to me, what I'm trying to build and what the Mint Pass holders are going to have is my ultimate goal is to create like a place where over time, if you believe in Web3 and if you believe in NFT technology, that over time, this will be a collection of artists who are going to become very important in this world. And these artists care about their NFT project. This isn't like, let me tokenize an image of my toys and sell it as an NFT digital. It's like, these artists want to all do something and figure out a way to be more creative and expand their creative process. So like my hope is that these Mint Pass holders over time will, a year from now, the collection will look like X. 2 years from now, be like, but I think you'll have like a steady, nice build of a collection that is curated. You mentioned the team earlier. It's not just me doing the curation. It's like, we have Nina who's, talking to tons of artists. Me, Kaz is the artist who actually really kind of came up with the idea and put together this Hilma project that's going off right now, which by the way, let's see where the auction is. It's almost over, I think.
Oh yeah, let's see.
It ends in 52 seconds. It's 1.3.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. See, I need to like stay on top of things, dude. Here's gonna happen, right? Live on the show. Oh, boom. Oh wait, it's updating. Oh, that's just updating there. 38 seconds, 1.3. Look at that. And I think too, like to your point, you were talking about the amount of pressure. And like, yeah, it's like people in the space, they can't wait longer than like a week for something. And they don't realize that number one, you shouldn't ever try to rush an artist. Like, I don't think that works out very well.
Never.
Like, dude, it's like, okay, let's try not to rush the creative process here. And number two, it's like have a little bit of faith in the industry and in the people you're trying to back. I think that's really interesting. Absolutely. This is so here's what I like about what you're doing is I always like to ask guests on the show, what do you see as the future of, our space? Like, where do you think things are headed when it comes to art and when it comes to Web3? What I like about what you're up to is like you're actively building it. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to actively build that future, and who knows where exactly it goes, but like you're working with physical artists. I love how I call them physical artists, regular artists, that make physical work. Oh, look, it's like it's up to 1.5 now. And you're also working with digital artists and finding a way to like bridge the two in unique and meaningful ways. So I love what you're up to.
And do it every which way, like literally, like I'm excited. I can't tell you how excited I am for Nina Chanel holders and Goda Mint Pass holders to go to this major museum exhibition that their artist has put on. Like, for me, like what I think is amazing is like just as like a collector or an investor, and I know we got to wrap it up, but I'm having such a good time talking to you.
Dude, this is great. Yeah.
So like, but like as an investor in art, right? Like what you want to see is you want to see this artist kind of start to build and grow, and more museum exhibitions, larger galleries, bigger institutional collections, all this stuff to happen. And like that was, you kind of did it from the periphery, and depending on how that trajectory took place, you'd hope that the value of your paintings would go up as the artist gained more popularity. Like this is the first time where like someone who owns an NFT, it's like you're really like on Nina's team. Like she like like the success of Nina and the promotion of her work is, and like is only going to help everyone on the team. And like, it's like, you get to participate, like come to the museum shows, come to this exhibition, and that's something different. And like, I'm excited to just see how many people come and experience something maybe that have never been to a museum before, or a museum opening for that matter. And I'll wrap it up with this is what I think is pretty cool. They announced ICA Miami owns one of Nina's Super Cool World NFTs,
Yeah.
in their permanent collection. And they just announced, I think it was 2 days ago, that I don't know if it was Yuga, but someone donated a CryptoPunk to the
Yeah.
ICA
It was
Miami.
Yuga. Yeah.
It was Yuga, right? And then I saw that there's like a punk party at the ICA Miami, I think like the Friday night of Basel or something like that. And I'm like, how dope is that for like Nina's project, that the party is going to be in the museum where her exhibition is? Like, so like, I'm just thinking from like, like people who've never heard of her, never seen the project, don't even know, like, are going to be, Web3 people are going to be exposed. Cause I'm always trying to think of like, how do I cross pollinate this? How do I get exposure on both sides? So yeah, but thanks so much.
Dude, this has been great. And I totally agree. It's interesting. I was talking with Pio earlier about like this idea that I came into the space, really dove into the art space from the NFT, the generative side. And now like I really truly enjoy learning about just the broader art world. It's like an entirely new world that's opened up to me. And so I'm totally one of those guys. And my goal is absolutely to like understand and get much deeper into just art in general, not just Web3, right? Not just NFTs. Hopefully, I mean, I think this industry is going to keep growing, but I love, it doesn't seem like we need to have any kind of artificial barriers in place, right? Like, let's just open it up, and art is art. It really just does not matter. It's just the medium through which we're trying to, buy and sell stuff, which is changing. And I think that's great, from a technological
Yeah.
standpoint.
And dude, like I'm interested in showing like Web3 native artists physically as well,
Yeah.
like in Chelsea in a proper like, New York art gallery. So like there's so much to do here and so much to grow. I mean, like the value is in the art. This is art, like it's not, there's no like gimmick. It's not like, we're not going to issue token coins for your art or the
Yeah.
same way the painting on the wall, but like it is in some cases, like Nina and Todd are both doing activations in Miami. So like around something that they already had going on. So like, you still get some kind of fun. Like my painting doesn't give me any fun outside of the utility I get just to look at it every day and enjoy it. But here you're owning artwork. There's a little bit of, extra bonuses behind it, but like the values in the art, the values in these creators that sell for the value that they already have in their careers. And like, I'll leave it at this. It's it was very humbling and is very humbling for Nina, where the price of her NFT is versus like where she is physically. She's like, I can make my Jordan sneakers. We're selling for $500 on StockX, but like, the floor of my project, I don't know where it is right now, probably like in dollar terms, probably like $600-700,
Yeah.
so like, it's been a humbling experience. It's been a very humbling experience for her. And like I think it's made her hungry to like want to continue to build and grow the project. So
I think that's cool. Yeah, it's like again, it's people not appreciating, right? Like because it's a different medium, it's something new, and that could spell opportunity for collectors for sure. But I also like that it kind of put a fire under her, right? And she's like, "Hey, this is I am more valuable than this." You know what I mean? Which is really kind of fascinating. So,
yeah.
man,
Oh,
this has been awesome, dude. Thank you so
yeah, and
much for
thanks for
joining.
covering Goda, dude. Thanks for talking about us. Thanks for going through the auction with everyone. Please, everyone, feel free to check out Goda, the projects that we've done so far. Nina Chanel Abney, Todd James, two really really incredible artists. More to come, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Awesome, dude. Absolutely. This was a blast. We'll definitely have to stay in touch. Everybody, definitely go and check out Todd Kramer, check out Goda. We'll have links to Todd's Twitter on the YouTube description. And looks like you got one more thing to say, Todd.
I'll make sure to let Sean Neff know you're friends with his brother.
Oh, absolutely, dude. Dude, the Neffs, I cannot say enough good things about him. So anytime I'm down in Southern California now, I try and hit up Chip. Anyway, thank you so much for joining, Todd. This has been fantastic. Another episode of Node Mode in the books. Thanks, everyone. We will catch you next week. We actually have an earlier show next week. Should be on Monday. So take a look at, keep your eye out for that, and we'll chat with you guys